I think Jussie Smollett is getting a raw deal. I think he's getting a bum deal, and I think there's a way to get to not guilty on this case. We could say Jussie Smollett is not guilty. What I mean by that is the state is required to prove Jussie Smollett is guilty by a reasonable doubt. When I say Jussie Smollett is guilty by a reasonable doubt, what that means is the state or the state of Illinois, where he's at, has to prove as to all the elements and circumstances of the case why he would be guilty of each and every element of the case. Now, in this case, I don't want to go through specifically what it is, but basically it's 6 counts, and each one is lying to police, some on the same occasion, some on different occasions. And sometimes it's about different things. So when the prosecutor went through, originally it was 9, they've went through and they've now narrowed it down to 6 separate counts. Some of them happened at the exact same time. So there's some questions there. But let's talk about what evidence they're using against him. This, I think, is important to realize. Of what, and this is for reading the, not the transcripts, but the live tweets, because they're not live streaming this one. Reading the live tweets of the transcript, or of the questions that are being asked in court. Megan Crapo, I think is her name, is doing an amazing job, and I've read as many as I can. I think this is a trumped-up case against him. I think there's a lot of questions about it. So let's talk about it. Okay, so before we do this, when we're going to do this, what I need you to do is set aside every presumption you have that he must be guilty. Set aside every presumption you have that he must be guilty, because we go into court, he has to be considered not guilty. The state has to prove the evidence. So put aside what we all know. And then let's talk about it. Every piece of evidence that points to him lying to the police is filtered through the role of 2 brothers, the Osundairo brothers. I don't want to say their names wrong. But these 2 brothers, who were friends of his, not close friends, but friends enough. One of them was hired as his trainer. And they are the ones who told the police everything they wanted to say about why Jussie Smollett was guilty. Now, what did he do? At right around 5 in the morning, but this happened around 2:33 in the morning, he called the police. He didn't call the police. His manager called the police, because his music manager is the one who heard him being attacked at the time. So because he heard him being attacked at the time, because he heard him being attacked at the time, he called the police. The police responded to the penthouse, or at the apartment where he was staying, and he went back there. When he went there, what did the police officer hear? What he said was, I was attacked, they poured bleach on me, they told me that they recognized me from Empire, that this is MAGA country, and they squirted bleach all over me. That's what he told the police officer generally. He also told the police officer something to the effect of, one of the people who attacked him, they were both wearing MAGA hats and masks, one of the people who attacked him was light-skinned. What's the corroboration for that? There's a doorman. I don't think it was at the same, but didn't see anybody attack him. But the doorman saw people running and leaving the scene. The doorman actually recognized as a witness, one of the people he saw leaving the scene was white. Okay. Well, that's not Jussie Smollett's statement. That's the doorman's statement. Immediately after this attack occurred, the 2 men, the 2 men that have been represented as either as trainer, actors on Empire, things of that nature, fled to Nigeria, and they went there for, I believe it was a long weekend, but not very long. They were there for a few days. And while they were there, the first thing they did was search the news to see what happened. They saw that he had been attacked. When they came back, they got stopped in Chicago at O'Hare Airport, and they were held for 48 hours. In the 47th hour, and this is according to their testimony in court, in the 47th hour, they gave a statement that said they were the ones who attacked Jussie Smollett and that he was in on the attack. It was all his idea, things of that nature. What is the physical evidence now that ties us to them telling the truth? Now, this is the thing. Police have come out in the news originally at the first I don't want to say the first, but at the press conference where it announced they were considering him a liar, what the police came out and said was, that early on they suspected the story that he may not have been telling the whole truth. Okay. When the brothers came forward, they searched the brother's house and they found a safe. In the safe, they found cocaine. Not in the safe, but they also found 3 different guns in the house. One of the brothers was either on probation or parole, so he absolutely was not allowed to have a gun. The other brother was allowed to have a gun. There's no limit on how many guns you're allowed to have personally, and I don't know the Illinois laws on if you're allowed to be in a house with guns if you're on probation or parole. But they haven't charged him with that, and they definitely haven't charged either brother with the cocaine. Brothers have said they're the ones who supplied drugs to Jussie Smollett. Drugs were never an issue until they came out and said this. They also presented a check for $3,500, which the brother's testimony was not that he paid us in order to attack him. He did not pay us. That's not what he said. He said he thought that the check was too much for what he was actually buying for them, which he was paying for both training and diet plans. So while he was paying for training and diet plans, what the brother said was that it was too much, so he assumed it was also payment for attacking him in the street in this matter. But Jussie never made that explicit, and he never actually said it. That's not what they're testifying to. The other evidence that has come out, I don't know if it's been testified to yet or not, or if it's just been announced, is that the $3,500, which he paid, was the exact same amount that he paid the previous trainer he had hired. So while those trainers said this was a high payment, according to Jussie's funds, it was the exact same rate. So is he really paying too much for this thing? Keep in mind, Jussie Smollett has never changed his story about what happened the entire time. He's never said anything different. And in fact, I didn't write it down, but in fact, they caught the detective who had taken notes. He had taken bad notes, and he actually had written things differently in his report from the notes he took. One of the things, Jussie said something along the lines of he appeared white, or he was acting something about how white he was, and then the detective is the one who said he was attacked by a white person, but the notes were something along the lines of he had a MAGA hat, and they said this is MAGA country, so he assumed he was white. I think he said he assumed he was white in the statement, but not in the notes. So from the earliest opportunity, they were interpreting this as he knew that he was in on something bad happening, that he had planned this. Let's keep going. He's never changed his statement. He didn't give a different statement. There's no suggestion that he's admitted at any point that he was in on it. And when they offered him a chance to make it all go away for $180,000, which, let's be clear, either he has or he could borrow, he could get a loan for, he could get a loan from someone at the record company, someone, his sister is super successful currently from somewhere. He said no. He said it's more important to me to go to trial and prove my innocence than to pay you to make it go away. Okay? So where are we now? Do we still think he did it? Oh, and then let's talk about the brothers. The brothers have, I believe, at least 2 or 3 tweets or text messages that endorse some kind of homophobia. We're not sure to what degree. And according to reports, they attacked a member of the Empire cast, someone on the Empire set, because he was gay. So supposedly using gay epithets as they were attacking this guy. The police chose not to investigate that, even though they had the person's name who supposedly they attacked. So the police didn't investigate any of these things. They didn't look into it. They weren't interested in the narration that these brothers might have been attacking Jussie because he was gay, knowing who he was or where he was because they had prior relationships with him, or that it had nothing to do with being gay, that they were trying to get money from Jussie. Maybe it was going to be extortion. Maybe it was going to be public embarrassment. Any of those things. Now, the defense has asked questions which make it seem as though there either, one, may have been a prior relationship with Jussie and one of the brothers, or there may have been some kind of sexual tension. Again, this is not proven, but it's been alluded to by the defense attorney. So if there's a question about some sort of sexual relationship, some sort of romantic relationship, or some sort of attack on his masculinity. And he also has a history of homophobia. You tell me, is that a motive to attack somebody? Is that a motive to hurt somebody? Or more importantly, and I think more realistically, is that a motive in order to extort somebody or to hurt somebody, make them look stupid, and then say, if you don't pay me more money, well, you know the rest of the story. You understand how this goes. This is what I'm going to suggest, and not so much about Jussie Smollett, although I don't think they have enough evidence to say that he's actually guilty of knowingly, and the law has to be knowingly. I don't think they have enough evidence to say he's knowingly lied to police. It really bothers me to think that. This is what bothers me. It bothers me to think that telling the police what you believe is honestly true is ever something you could be prosecuted for, and I want to explain why. I'm very much against cases where we find out someone, let's say 50 years later, 30 years later, 20 years later, comes forward and says, you remember what I told the police before? I was lying when I said that. Now I want to tell you the truth. I'm very against prosecuting that kind of thing because what it does is encourages people to not tell the truth. What happens if you're misunderstood? What happens if you're not sure what you saw out the window? Do you give the police your best statement in support of someone else outside who really, really needs your help because you're an eyewitness? Or do you say something more along the lines of, I'm scared to tell the whole truth because what happens if they come down on me for giving a fake statement the way they've come down on other people? Because it's a very, very thin line between making it illegal to give a false statement, making it illegal to knowingly give a false statement and making it illegal to recklessly give a false statement and just mistakenly giving a false statement. And that's the route you start going down to if we start making illegal and if we start really prosecuting people who make statements based with their best intentions and don't make statements based on, how do I want to say this? They make statements with their best intentions, but maybe they're not fully informed of everything that happened. So this is what I'm telling you. This is why I went through the whole videos, because this is what I want to explain is, I don't know. I understand the whole universe may disagree with me at this point in time, but I don't know today, right now, that based on the evidence I've seen, having read the evidence that came out during the Jussie Smollett trial, that I think he should be found guilty of lying to the police. I don't know that the evidence has come out, not enough, that he knew when he made these statements to the police that what he was saying may have been less than true. I really think there's evidence in there. I really think there's evidence that we have to see that shows that he may have been functionally set up by these brothers and then the police department who didn't care to look into if the story was them setting him up or if the story was him lying about what happened because of the rush to judgment immediately after him announcing that he had been attacked and then people bad-mouthing Chicago for all the things that happened. So I really don't want us to get into a habit of prosecuting people for not telling the truth to police, largely because I want police to be responsible, to look into everything people say, and that at some point, if they really think that a crime is involved based on what they've looked into, supply that to the prosecutor's office, let the prosecutor's office run with it, and either charge or not charge based on what it was. But if what ends up happening is we prosecute people for false statements, we start to get into the world of us saying, your statement is false, and therefore you have to go to jail. And when we go down that road, I want to be very clear what's at the end of the road. That's a message to say, don't call the police if you need help, because if they think that the reason you're calling is incorrect, if they think the reason you're calling is incorrect, you're the one who could be arrested and go to jail. And the other purpose in this case, to pursue this case to what such a degree they're doing to, is to say, hey, when people make reports like this, they're lying. It's not enough to say that they're mistaken, and it's not enough to say that someone else may have attacked him who isn't your standard person who we think fits into that category. a costume operation. So he's well. I mean, the exact same thing as the Boston Tea Party. Let's be very, very clear. That's what that was. Is people pretended to be someone else to set up other. It's just not a mystery in American history. This is what the foundation of American history is based on. So I really think what we need to do is I really hope what ends up happening is, unless I see other evidence that comes out that points to him knowing that he was making a false statement at the times he made those statements. I really hope he's not convicted. But number two, I really think we should look at these laws that encourage the prosecution of people who believe they're victims. And I'm not saying that all victims are always right, and I'm not saying that you have to trust no matter what. What I am saying is it should be investigated, and that investigation should be fair and balanced and impartial. And we should look at it at the end and not punish people who are acting with the best of intentions. And we're headed down that road, if that's the way this goes. So I appreciate everyone sitting with me on this. I appreciate you guys doing this. We did this in one take. I didn't set up any equipment. All I did was just set up my phone and decide to talk to you about it. It's been bothering me for a minute, and the more I read the evidence in this case, the more I realize I really wanted to tell people the world. I could be wrong as to the result. I want to be very clear. I'm not sure that the result will be that he's acquitted, but based on the evidence I've seen so far, I personally, based on what I've read, that of evidence that has come in a trial, I want to be very clear about this, not the statements in the news. I don't know that I believe that there's enough reliable, credible evidence that says he knew he was saying a false statement to the police at the point he was making false statements to the police.